Freshwater Sustainability by
Aiden Bahadzadeh,
Graham Cantel,
Keegan Lawson.
and Nico Granado.
What is the problem? The freshwater management practices in place today are inefficient, unsustainable, and harmful to the environment. In some ways, the inefficiency can be attributed to the greedy and excessive agricultural demands of the world. As stated by World Wildlife Organization, agriculture uses 70% of the world's accessible freshwater, but some 60% of this is wasted. The waste is caused by the irrigation systems, incorrect application of water resources, and improper location selection for crop growth. This leads to another factor of the lacking efficacy, the systems themselves. Expensive water filtration and or converter facilities, such as desalination plants or rainwater collection systems, are not feasible for many countries because of the high costs. But these systems are all too commonly faulty. As inferred by these observations from Dr. Manasi Day, a department head of geography at Lady Broadmoor, a top college in India. A mere 28% of all rainfall in India is retained for use. The extraction of freshwater from our resources, lakes, aquifers, rivers, etc., is far too excessive. Freshwater is extracted at a rate faster than it can be replenished through natural processes, and this leads to our freshwater resources completely disappearing. Wasteful practices on large and small scales, combined with the ever-growing population, simply cannot be supported by our current resources. This Miller textbook chart displays the stress water resources face, and unsurprisingly, major countries like the United States and Canada, many in Europe, and many in Asia are all completely overrun with high stress. One last problem is the multitude of environmental impacts from our methods. Most of the problems arise from water flow reallocation, which disrupts ecosystems and freshwater resources alike. The Aral Sea, for example, turned from the fourth largest freshwater body on the planet to a salty, dried-up basin in 30 years. This is the magnitude of our environmental impacts.
Now, the first solution would be to improve our agricultural methods. One way we can do this is with drip irrigation systems. Instead of using sprinklers and other irrigation methods, drip irrigation slowly drips water into your soil, increasing your water efficiency. Another way is water monitoring technology. This monitors the pH level of your water to ensure that your plants are getting the right amount of nutrients they need. Lastly would be soil moisture sensors. Soil moisture sensors detect the amount of moisture in the soil to see if you have too much or too little so that you can change the amount you water next time. According to Meredith Niles and Courtney Wagner, who both received their PhD, state that 59% of farmers have already adopted drip irrigation practices, 40% have already adopted water monitoring technology, and another 40% have already adopted soil moisture sensors. According to Jose Piera, here are some of the limitations to agricultural methods. Firstly would be emitter clogging. Water that is high in iron and uncleansed will go through drip irrigation pipes and clog up the pipes. Next is rodents. Rodents often chew on these pipes, causing leakages and further leaching. Next is the investment cost. It is known to cost anywhere between $500 and $800 per acre to implement these practices. And lastly, installation. Installation is often very labor-intensive and requires special equipment to get done. And this can be a reason why many farmers won't implement these new farming methods. According to the University of Missouri, here are the pros and cons of agricultural methods. Firstly, it minimizes your evaporation, saving your water. Next, there is less nutrient loss. By drip irrigation slowly going, there is less nutrient loss because less water is leaching into the soil. Third, no need for land grading. Other irrigation methods need land grading, such as land to be leveled out and for irrigation methods to be put in place. However, with drip irrigation methods, there's no need for that. Similar to this is field shaping. Drip irrigation systems don't need a specific field shape. However, with other irrigation systems, there is a need for it. Some cons to this is high maintenance. Lots of times, drip irrigation systems need lots of maintenance to keep the system up and running. Also, industrial-sized trimmers such as this won't be able to be used on your drip irrigation sites because it'll cut your lines and cause the same effect as rodents, such as leakages and leaching.
Solution 2, desalination. First of all, what is desalination? According to Bei Wan of Stoughton Caboose University, desalination is a process of removing salts from seawater to produce fresh water. As you can see in this image, ocean water is brought into one of these plants, extracted of its salts, and it leaves a product of fresh water. So what are the pros of this solution? According to Bootcamp at Delft University of Technology, desalination provides a more sustainable alternative by decreasing the use of fresh water. This is a more sustainable alternative because, according to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, only 0.5% of the water on Earth is actually available for human consumption, whereas 97% of the water on Earth is actually salt water. So this shows how we have a surplus of salt water that can be desalinated and turned into fresh water, which we have a very limited supply of. So what are the cons of this solution? According to Panagopoulos of the National Technical University of Athens, desalination has negative effects on the environment, such as high energy consumption, air pollution, and harm to marine species. This means that we shouldn't just build these plants anywhere, because they can actually damage the environment and the animals within them. In fact, we can't even build these plants anywhere because of their high costs. According to the Texas Water Development Board, it costs $32 million to build just one of these plants. And some areas just simply don't have the required money to do this. So in conclusion, desalination can be a practical solution in areas where they have the required resources. However, this is not always the case.
Now there are pros and cons that make each solution better than the other, so let's review them. So some pros of the agricultural methods is that it greatly reduces freshwater depletion, minimizes evaporation, and is environmentally friendly, unlike desalination. Some cons of the solution, however, is that it requires high maintenance and it's very time consuming to install. Also, it doesn't actually create freshwater like desalination, but instead just reduces the amount used. Now, some pros of desalination is that more freshwater is produced, unlike the agricultural methods. Also, according to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, 97% of the world's water is salt water, which is able to be converted to freshwater through desalination, making it a more sustainable option. Some cons of this solution, though, is that it's expensive, which makes it harder to incorporate into lower income areas. Also, it's harmful to the environment because these desalination factories leave out harmful air pollutants and they require high amounts of energy. Thank you. Oh, what is the better solution? Agricultural methods are the better solution. This is because of the harmful effects created by desalination. Also, the agricultural methods are the cheaper option, making it a more viable solution for lower income areas. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start with you, Aiden. So Aiden, how did the group decide to include Keegan's perspective or conclusions into the overall presentation?
So Keegan's perspective was futuristic, and he included that in the Aral Sea by showing that how water, if nothing's done about our current freshwater state, the water levels will continue to deplete. And this is very important, and he brought it to mind very well in our presentation.
Okay. And Keegan, can you give me one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of Nico's findings?
So Nico's was economic, and it was interesting to see how much of a role water actually played in the economy. I didn't understand how much water actually costs to be extracted from the earth, to be transported, how much it costs to use on a daily basis. And it kind of brought to mind how much my wasteful practices might affect that, because I maybe take longer showers or something, and that actually impacts the economy largely, and it's a big problem that I didn't really think about beforehand.
Okay, thank you. And Nico, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem that your group identified?
I felt that Keegan had the greatest impact on my understanding because when he brings up India's rainfall collection, it actually doesn't seem as beneficial, and his lens is futuristic, and we need to think of future ways that we can come up with better solutions, because India's rainfall collection system only saved about 20% of the rainfall collected.
Okay. And Graham, what is an example of an argument, compelling argument from one of your peers' reports that you decided not to use in your team presentation, and why?
So a compelling argument is from Nico's paper when he talks about the major effect that water has on the economy. He talks about how water is important for all the industries within the economy. However, we didn't include this in our paper because it didn't align as well with our solutions, because we mainly focus on the environmental side of it, and the economical side, we kind of go with it, but it just didn't tie in.
Okay, great, thank you.